I want to discuss the term Naad with you. So tell us what it means and why it's not the same thing as sound. A lot of people equate.
So first let us understand what Nada is. Any Shastra will have its own set of technical terms called as Paribhashika Padas, which a student of that particular Shastra has to first learn in order to be able to study the Shastra more deeply later on. Vyakarana Shastra, Alankara Shastra, each Shastra has its own set of Paribhashika Padas. And Sangeeta Shastra, music also is a science. So Sangeeta Shastra has its own set of Paribhashika Padas. And the very first Paribhashika Pada that a student of Indian music learns is Nada. And this you don't find in any other system of music. This is exclusive to Indian music. And if we have to see how it is defined, Sangeeta Ratnakara, an authoritative treatise that was written around the 12th, 13th centuries by Sharngadeva, it defines Nada as Nakaram Prananamanam Dakaram Analam Viduhu Jata Pranagni Samyogat Tena Nadobhi Dhiyate. So the word Nada is made of two letters, Na and Da. Nakaram Prananamanam. Nakara stands for the Prana Shakti, or in this case it is the Prana Vayu. And Dakaram Analam Viduhu. Dakara stands for Anala or Agni or fire. Jata Pranagni Samyogat Tena Nadobhi Dhiyate. So Nada is thus produced or created out of the unison of the Prana Shakti and the Agni in the human body. And this text goes on to explain in great detail the whole process that is involved in the production of Nada in the human body. It is first the Atman which directs the Manas to produce the Nada, and the Manas in turn instigates the Prana Shakti. Prana Shakti interacts with the Agni, and thus Nada is produced. And the Nada that is produced travels through, in the human body, it travels through Nabhi, Hridaya, Kantha and Shiras. So it travels through that path and it gets expressed. And this has been beautifully explained by several great saint composers in our tradition. For example, you have Sri Tyagaraja Swami. In a composition of his, he describes Pranalala Samyogamu Valla Pranavanadamu Sapta Swaramulai Baraga. So this has been the same idea is reflected in Tyagaraja's Kriti. And Nabhi Hritkanta Rasana Nasadula Yendo Shobhillu Saptaswara. So it's Nada which gives rise to the swaras later on. So all this comes from the unison of the Prana Vayu with the Agni in the human body.
Very good. So this is Sankhya based philosophy.
Yes.
And the human body is the instrument.
Is the instrument, yes.
So I'm going to ask some questions.
Yes.
Yeah. Nada cannot be just any sound.
Yes.
Because if it's raining, that is not produced by the same mechanism.
See, basically Nada is classified into two types. One is Ahata Nada and Anahata Nada.
Yes.
Sangeeta Ratnakara says, Ahato Anahatas Cheti Dvidha Nado Nigadyate. So Ahata Nada is Nada that is struck, that is heard externally. So the Nada that is produced by the human voice or the musical instruments or the elements of nature like the birds, animals, rivers, etc. All this come under Ahata Nada. And Anahata Nada is that which is unstruck or non-vibratory. Ahata Nada is produced by vibration. Anahata Nada, you don't need any vibration. It is non-vibratory, it is internal and mystical. So this is something which is not audible outside, but it has to be experienced. It is something that can be experienced by only great yogis or sadhakas who have had spiritual insights, deep spiritual insights.
So the Anahata, how is it related to Carnatic music? Because here you are vocalizing externally.
Yeah, we are now dealing with only Ahata Nada.
Okay.
Anahata Nada is another possibility when you internalize and become a yogi. And I've heard scholars say that there are the 7 chakras in the human body, the spiritual centers along the Kundalini from the Mooladhara to the Sahasrara, and the chakra that pertains to the chest area is called as the Anahata Chakra.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and those yogis who are able to meditate upon this Anahata Chakra and tap that Anahata Chakra are the ones who can experience this Anahata Nada, is what I've heard.
But in the context of Carnatic music,
Right.
is Nada human only, or is it also a mechanical sound? Because it is the external sound.
Yeah, I will clearly explain what is the difference between a nada and a sound which is not nada.
Yes, please do that.
Yeah. First of all, nada has in Indian music, nada has been always viewed with a philosophical dimension. So it is said to have been originated from the Omkara or the Pranavanada.
Yes.
So it is the all-pervading eternal musical sound of the universe from which originates all beings and all speech.
Right.
So there is a very popular shloka which says, Yonadas sarva bhutanam sarva varnasya chankuraha yo bijam mantrakotinam tam nityam pranamamyaham. So it is identified with the bindu. You know, they say, Yato bindus tato nadaha. And Matanga's Brihaddeshi, 6th century text, it says, Tato bindus tato nadas tato matras tvanukramat. So it is the root or the center point of the creation or the cosmos from which everything else emerges. And it is nitya and anirvachaniya. It's always there in the creation. It never dies. It is something which doesn't have a beginning or an end. It is eternal. And after having explained all these things about nada, beyond a point it is anirvachaniya. Yeah. It is inexplicable. Yes. You just have to explain.
Non-conceptual.
Yes. Yeah. And coming to the practical aspect of nada that we see in music, not just in Carnatic music, both Hindustani and Indian music, because both Hindustani and Carnatic music are based on the same principles of nada. The very sound of the letter na and da, the soft syllables, so they are suggestive of melody. And one special feature which distinguishes nada from a sound which is not nada is, nada, the quality that nada must have is avichinnata or dairghya. It must be long enough. So there must be that continuous sustained musical sound. So if I clap, this is a sound. But if I ring a bell, that is nada. If I hit on wood, that is sound. But if I hit on a stretched membrane, animal skin, which like a mridangam or a tabla, a musical instrument, percussion instrument, that is nada. If I say that will be sound. But if I say that will be nada. So the basic quality of that nada is it must have a continuity, it must be a sustained sound, it must be a musical, melodious, pleasing sound.
But the requirement that it has to be produced with prana is not there in those cases.
Yeah, even if you are playing an instrument, your prana shakti is working.
True,
there.
But if you have rain, then it is just...
There is the eternal prana shakti, the prana shakti of the cosmos.
No, but in the physiology of the body that is required to produce,
yes,
is not there in...
It is not there in that case, yes. The definition that I gave is the process that explains the production of nada in the human body.
Okay.
And how it travels when it comes out, when it gets expressed.
So I have a question on technology here.
I'm not a technical person though.
But you have to answer this.
Yes, let me try.
When an iPod is singing,
okay,
is that nada? If you record music,
yes,
now it is not produced by anybody's prana.
It has earlier been produced by somebody's prana.
No, that's okay, but it is turned into bits, binary numbers, digits.
Yes.
And machine is looking at these and making mechanical sounds, what you're calling short sounds, which are not nada, but a series of these so quickly that it appears to us that it is long. So it is kind of an illusion that this is a nice long sound, but it is the machine makes it out of very tiny little sound.
Yes. The continuous sound is kind of broken into pieces.
Yes. And this binary code which it has, it gives it instructions on which sequence it has to generate. So in doing so, it is not using any human apparatus. It is not using the human body in the Sankhya sense to produce it. So if I listen to machine recording, is that nada, or is it just that my ear is reminded of Nada.
Is reminded of Nada. That is all I can say. It is Nada which has already been produced earlier,
yes,
which the machine is now trying to just produce with its technology.
Right.
So it cannot definitely come anywhere close to a live musician sitting in front of you and singing.
Machine reproduced
Got it.
sound,
Yeah.
which is indifferentiable from human sound even in
it
the
is
ear,
differentiable.
even in the most trained ear. No, but I would say, if you have the most trained ears of best musicians in the world, and you say, okay, now I'm going to give you this sound. Sometimes it's a person sitting there who's singing. It is Vrinda singing.
Okay.
And sometimes it will be Vrinda's recording. Vrinda is gone and recording is here. Now you got to tell which is which.
I think I can tell the difference. Anybody can tell the difference.
Okay, then you've beaten the machine reproducible. But I would say that as the quality of the sound reproduction becomes better and better,
yes,
and the replicates the real human being, a time might come when no human being would be able to differentiate the two.
Yeah. Now you also have these. There is a concept called as sound sampling. You take the sound samples of the different instruments, you feed it in your iPad or system, and you play it in a sequence, and it will sound like a mridangam or a tabla or a veena or a violinist playing.
Right.
But still, it can never come close.
But that's just a limitation of the machines right now.
Right.
But we're talking philosophy of what's possible.
Right.
So we are saying conceptually.
Yes.
Conceptually, can you mechanically produce nada and replace human beings?
The machine is only playing the recording of singing a rendition of a musician who's already sung. So the machine is not producing something on its own. So it's a recording that's being played. So the nada, the aspect of nada, the quality of nada is borrowed, recorded, and now being played.
Yes, but that human pran is not present in this machine.
Is not present.
It is just silicon,
yes,
which is just making those sounds.
Yes.
So that's an interesting topic.
Yes, yes. It's very thought-provoking.
So let's continue with our discussion.
Okay. Coming back to nada, the philosophical dimension of nada, the speciality of this Indian concept of nada is that in India, God has been conceived of as Nada Brahman. So yes, he is being perceived as the personification or the very embodiment of nada. And through Nadopasana, Sangeetopasana, or the worship of Nada, you are trying to reach him. So the means and the end are the same. So worship of Nada, in order to experience the supreme reality, which is the embodiment of Nada. So that is a very special concept, which is India's contribution to world thought. And this whole process is called as Nada Yoga. So we have so many great musicians, highly gifted musicians, divine saint composers who have dedicated all their lives for music, and they have experienced this supreme reality in the form of nada through Nadopasana, and they are called as Nada Yogis. And these ideas are very well reflected in Sangeeta Ratnakara, which says, Chaitanyam Sarva Bhutanam Vivritam Jagadatmana Nada Brahma Tadanandam Advitiyam Upasmahe. I worship that matchless and blissful Nada Brahman, who is the very consciousness in all beings, and who is manifest in this entire creation. Nadopasanaya Deva Brahma Vishnu Maheshwaraha Bhavantyupasita Nunam Yasmadete Tadatmakaha. So the gods Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva are all indeed embodiments of Nada. And through the worship of Nada, you are going to worship them. So that is the whole concept in India. And this idea has been reflected in several compositions by our own saint composers, like the greatest of them is Sri Tyagaraja, who says in many of his compositions, he says Nadatmaka Tyagaraja, Pranavanada Sudara Sambilano, Nada Tanumanisham Shankaram Namami. I worship Lord Shankara, who is Nada Tanu, who is of the form of Nada. And that's a beautiful composition which explains how the 7 swaras of music have emerged from the 5 faces of Lord Shiva and so on. And even in compositions by Muthuswami Dikshitar, he says Anirvachaniya Nada Bindo, he says Nada Bindu Kalaspadam, And Arunagirinathar's composition, he says, Nada Bindu Kaladi Namo Namo. So the whole idea, this sublime nature of Nada, that the exalted status that is given to Nada is something which is unique only to Indian culture, which you don't find in any musical culture anywhere in the world.
So given this very profound description of Nada, how is it different from sound?
No doubt Nada is also sound basically, but any sound cannot be considered as Nada. Only a pure musical, continuous, sustained, melodic sound which can be perceived in the aforesaid philosophical background can be considered as Nada. And if sound may represent only Shabda. In fact, Shabda is used in two senses. It's used in the sense of a word. It is used in the sense of sound that we hear. So when I say sound, it can mean Shabda or Dhvani, but it not necessarily means Nada. And if I just say sound, this whole philosophical background is lost. The concept of Nada Brahman is lost. The concept of Nada Yoga is lost. Nadopasana is lost. So identifying the eternal musical sound of the universe as unified with the Bindu, the root of the creation, that is lost. So that is the entire philosophical dimension gets diluted if you say Nada is equal to sound. And one more thing is, no such concept is to be found in any book on the theory of Western music. So they don't have a concept of Nada. They don't have this kind of a philosophical dimension to it.
Is Nada intelligence? Does it have intelligence?
Nada is, it's a form of creation. I mean, just like if you say Brahman.
Brahman is intelligence.
Brahman is intelligent. Of course, Nada is intelligent. If it is coming from Brahman.
So that's also a difference with sound, because sound is just any sound.
Exactly. It has the ability to produce certain effects.
Now that I think is a very important point you just made. Nada has effects.
Yes.
Sound is sound. It could have effects. We don't know what they are.
Yes.
There's no theory of the effect of a sound.
Right.
In Western thought.
In Western thought. And they call it sound of music, but in our tradition, even when we are comparing, let's say, two musical instruments, we will say Nada of instrument A is better than Nada of instrument B. We will not say sound of instrument A is good. That approach itself is not there.